Welcome, friends, to another video. I'm excited to present to you about Project for the Web and some of the soon-to-be released features. We're going to do a little bit more commentary on Microsoft's roadmap, as well as get into how you guys can actually prepare, plan, or stay on top of some of the new releases, not just for Project, but technically with any of the tools that happen to be out there. Again, as we go through, I'm Tim Runcie. I'm the CEO of Advisicon, and I've been doing this for quite a long time as a project MVP. So very happy to continue to look for the best tools, the tips, tricks, shortcuts, as well as how you can help grow your culture in what you're doing in terms of increasing you or your team's productivity. If you ever have any questions, I encourage people to reach out. It's a lot of fun to continue to kind of point people in the right direction. So I always encourage people, if they're looking for a template or a PowerPoint, don't hesitate to ask. Today's agenda, we're going to get into a little bit of how you're going to, first of all, stay on top of where in the world are all these changes. What's interesting is that there's a lot of things that are coming out. Some of them are in pre-release. Some of them are in general announcement. Others are designed for government. Hey, look, nothing is actually rolled out. Or if you're in high government, GCC high, sometimes you have to wait longer. And so people are asking when and where and how do I find out things, not just for project technology, but across the spectrum. So we're going to go through some of that as well as look at Project and Project for the Web's new timeline and Microsoft's intent to kind of move some of that content and make that information available. So as we think about this is going to be helpful for all of you guys. And then we're going to dig into some of the new features and what that will actually mean, as well as timing of when those things are actually going to land. So first off, let me kind of give us an overview. We're going to talk about some of the admin center, as well as the increased task limits, some of the project tasks in terms of showing up in something called a Mu View. Notice I put a couple extra exclamation points there. This is actually a really cool feature, and the ability to continue to help people find, no matter where a work or task is started from, it will fall into a view that will help you with that. Again, we'll talk about grid view and conditional coloring, which if you haven't got yours rolling out, I just did a webinar and shared that with folks on how to use it. So feel free to check back. It's actually very straightforward. And then there's some advanced dependencies, which we've been hollering about for quite a long time. Please, Microsoft, please give us advanced dependencies. Talk about baselines and things like that. There's a lot in their basically wish list. And Microsoft engineering team is working hard to get these things out as quick as they can, but they're moving in concert with the entire Microsoft 365's tool set. That's so important to understand that planner, project, even project operations, there's elements that all move together. And so it isn't just about one team sprinting ahead. There really is some better benefits about having that better together story. So we'll get into a little bit of the advanced timeline changes, as well as some of the resource and work hours, and of course the planner to project connected to Viva goals, which I'm going to be very excited. And we'll have a dedicated working session to kind of walk people through how that goes. And if you haven't heard about that, we talk about OKRs, or getting into the ability of strategic planning, or recognizing that we have key objectives, key result statements. We really want to make sure that work is getting aligned to making sure that we're getting the big rocks done throughout the week, the month, the year, etc. So again, playing around with some of our features. Now we've got a couple other that I'll talk about a little bit. I'll call these honorable mentions. And that is the fact that these are already out. And if you haven't had a chance to even think or process that, the idea is that an E3 or an E5 license user can actually go into Project for the Web and update their activities without needing a license. Think of it like they're going to come in, progress their assignments, put in the actuals, or put in the work. But the ideas are not actually building and managing the schedule. They're progressing their assignments or the work that happens to be there. Again, Microsoft has removed the license restriction to be able to allow more people to come in quickly and efficiently and kind of progress that schedule, but not have control of that schedule like you would if you had to share Project Desktop. Again, planner labels have been carried in there. In fact, this becomes a great way for sorting, filtering, grouping, as well as our prioritization. And again, we have custom pick list, roll-ups, lookups, and including some conditional formatting along the overall columns themselves. And then sprints themselves can be defined. So if you haven't seen these, I encourage you to jump in and take a look at some of those. All right, let's dig in a little bit deeper here. So first off, I'm going to talk a little bit about the overall timeline, meaning that what Microsoft is trying to do is have a grow up story that said, you know what, we've got Planner. It's the #1 app added in Microsoft Teams. In fact, it helps people organize. It comes with the Office 365 experience. And so you've got this wonderful lightweight work management tool that allows people to do quite a bit of the Kanban or post-it note management, grouping cards and moving them around. But what if you need more? What if you actually need to take it up a notch and say, hey, if something slips, I really want to know what the downstream impact, and not just who's doing it and whether it's started, in progress, or done. I may want to have a level of effort, or perhaps I'm thinking a little bit more about how this will work, and perhaps even if there are impacts at the same time where maybe I've overallocated my resources. This is part of where we begin looking at the grow up story from planner to project. So we're thinking about what's new here. We also get into the understanding that there is this stair step, and it makes a lot of sense. So while Microsoft To Do, which you don't even need to have Office 365 to download that, it's a great tool. In fact, many people, even at Microsoft, really like it because they'll flag their tasks. They put in their kind of wish list, punch list, things that they need to do personal, could be professional. But the idea is that all that information becomes visible and available. And we'll talk about other places it shows up. But it's all about you, right? You working on things, making sure you are getting things done. When we move up to the work management level, meaning that we bring a group of people together and we start to dig in to, hey, listen, I've got things that need to get done. I might want checklists or notes. Planner is a great tool for that. In fact, it fits very well in that work management space. We even think about Azure DevOps in the world saying, hey, listen, I've got this task work management tool whereby developers can come in, they can have their user stories, they get that same type of board experience, and they can even put estimates. But the idea is that it's not time phased, meaning that if something slips, I don't see a cascading chain that moves the milestones out 3 or 4 months or pulls them back in if we crash the schedule by putting more resources on there. And that's where the grow up story, where Project for the Web kind of growing out of Planner, or maybe you need more of Project Desktop or even into Project Operations, is that you can go from a hammer, meaning that I'm going to hang a picture on the wall, to a sledgehammer, to a jackhammer. It really depends on what you're trying to do, but yet a hammer can be a hammer. So from task management to work management to project program and portfolio management, it is about productivity and accountability. And so Microsoft is trying to help us move that direction. Again, putting out roadmaps are very helpful. In fact, we're going to talk about the roadmap tool here in just a moment. But the idea is that, hey, listen, there's usage now, visibility of how much data is being consumed, how much attachments are starting to eat up from project. We also talk about things like labels on task and other things. So Microsoft has this pendulum moving out in the future, including the continuous momentum of adding assignments into Microsoft Teams environment, which we'll see and we'll talk about as one of the new or soon to be released elements, which I'm actually very excited about. We also get into people or increase size limits. And so there's a continual growth of investment that Microsoft will make in Project for the Web. So as we're thinking about some of these soon to be released features, what I want to do is I'm going to start us off in a little bit of a different direction. In fact, let me bring up the roadmap tool real quickly here so we can kind of see this. So I'm just here at https www.microsoft.com. In fact, if you just want to do a search for roadmap, you can find the Microsoft 365 roadmap tool here. And this is actually an app. I know that Microsoft has some great things that they're going to actually add to this and give you more details, but I want to show you how this works so that I get a lot of questions. Our team gets lots of questions about what's coming, when will it be out, where is it at? Well, I don't own Microsoft, and if I did, I'd try and push certainly things further and farther faster. But in general, you have to deal with what is actually scope, schedule, and budget. So if we think about the roadmap and all the tools that Microsoft has, when you come here, you can actually search by keyword, or if you want to come in and just say, look, I'm looking for a specific product, you can begin narrowing down. Oh, hey, listen, there's 7 that are in development. Well, wait a minute, I'm only looking for things that are in the current preview, or perhaps I'm looking for general availability. And as you go through here, you can actually add or include these, or you can leave them off and it'll include them. including whether you are looking for a mobile device, developer edition, or web. So as I'm going through here, I may also want to know, hey, is it in the last week? There's so many things that are out there. What can I filter for? And again, the more products that you have in here, you're going to see these things grow up. And certainly as you look at all the items, you can just check the boxes. And down below, we're going to see a list of options appear. Again, don't forget to clear all, especially if you want to come back, you can kind of search for these. But now if I'm looking in the list here, I can say, hey, I want to see 7 that are in the development phase. What is Microsoft doing with this assigned to me view in project task? What does that actually mean? Or if you want to look at, hey, they're about ready to roll these out, or perhaps we've been in preview and then we're getting ready for the GA release, you can actually talk about when they're available. And what's nice here is that you can actually see the dates. Now, when I click on this, it doesn't just give you kind of an overall view of just a little bit of the information. It has feature, it has the ID number. So if you ever want to look it back up or do a keyword search, you can find that. You can also see the instance in terms of where it will be available. And of course, the platform. And then just the idea of the release phases. And then more appropriately is when is GA, meaning the general release to predominantly the entire public. You can kind of see this on February 2023. Well, we are in February 2023. So if you are looking for things that are new and coming out, you might actually see these depending on how your IT administrator has set this up. Now, the information I'm showing you here is very, I'll call it Spartan. Microsoft has much more plans for this app. In fact, we'll talk about the ability not just to, email yourself a link or connect it to RSS feeds, but the idea is that there's going to be pictures or more information made available. And I really like that because in many cases, I have to go in and sometimes work as part of the TAP program, or as an MVP, I may have to come in and look at preview things just to get an idea of what it might look like. So as you start looking in here, you can actually see these and film or pick or click what you would like to look at. And so whether it's in development or it's rolling out or it's launched, you can toggle these directly, as well as picking, hey, I'm only looking for what just changed in the last month or perhaps within the last week. Again, great little filter here to manage. And again, I'm going to talk through a couple of these as we get started so we can actually understand these. So first off, I'll just leave this screen up here and we can kind of describe a little bit more detail about this admin or other settings that we might be looking for. So in this one here, Microsoft Admin Center says I can send email notifications from your own domain. If you have ever been an MSP, or if you are an MSP, or you're getting a lot of feedback from Microsoft, you get lots of emails. And the idea is that if you have a tenant or a domain, it really makes sense if you're having some of the notifications not just come from Microsoft, but really come from a specific area. This will actually help some of the back-end administration or people who are looking or monitoring, because you get tons of emails about, hey, here comes another bill, or hey, go check this out. And so sometimes it's almost overwhelming the amount of information that happens to be available. So again, thinking through some of these, that'd be helpful. Now, I'm going to move to this next one here, and I'm going to cover the top one just a little bit later on because that's kind of exciting. So we have been asking for more than 500 rows from Microsoft almost since the day they launched Project for the Web. And so Project for the Web is going to jump up to 1,000 tasks. And I will tell you, they won't stop there. Just Microsoft has a lot of things on their wish list. And so what they're doing is they're slowly expanding the capabilities. Now, if you look at some of the averages that some of the statistics show, is that most people use project schedules anywhere from 40 to 100 rows. So the predominantly 500 seem to fit. But as you begin moving this up into larger and larger projects or programs, or perhaps you might be using this with project operations, or perhaps you have a Power App wrapped around this, having a limitation of 500 rows is really struggling for most people. So they bumped it up to 1,000. This should at least buy a significant chunk of folks who said, hey, look, I need more, but I don't need 20,000 rows. What I'm really looking for is something to manage with. So very excited. Again, March 2023, we should see this rolling out and should be helpful in terms of increasing those task limits. In fact, I'm going to switch and show another screen here. Let me switch up to the top here for just a moment. Now, if you read it, it says view and update, mark as complete or in progress, all tasks assigned to you across project in one place. Now think about that. When somebody does an at mention and they create a task, or they're in Word and they want to take that at mention and turn it into a task, or maybe you're using To Do and Planner and you've got lots of different little planner boards, and now you're using Project for the Web, how do I keep track of all these tasks? Well, I'm going to bring up Teams here, and a great tool here. In fact, you notice here I've got a professional services, I got a channel, I've got planner boards, I've got some financially secure information that's on a SharePoint side, I got Power BI reports, lots are going on here. And the idea is that that one-stop shop is very helpful in terms of looking at my work or my work activity. But if I want to, and if you haven't done this yet, you can add this app called Task by Planner and To Do. In fact, let me click on this. And so even though mine has not fully refreshed and brought in or started bringing in the project task schedules, the idea is that you can actually say, hey, here's all the things that are assigned to me. Or perhaps maybe I plan some of my activities, or maybe I'm using To Do and I've got a running to the store list. You can actually look at the organization of tasks, including coming from different places, and find out what's important, what's been flagged, what came from your email, or what's even been assigned to you in one place. And what's great about that is I jump in here, it's very easy for me to say, hey, listen, if I need to do a workshop update here, I can actually jump into this. In fact, let me zoom my screen here if we can get that to work a little bit better. There you go. This is coming out of a planner board, but Project for the Web, this is what you're going to see when you see Project for the Web connected in your tasks. You'll see the labels, the task, you'll see the information just like you would normally. And again, you can progress this by marking it done or not done. You can do it right here. So the idea is that all these tasks will begin to flow into one place. And that is really important because if you have a lot of work assignments coming from different places, having one version of the truth is really helpful. So again, Task by Planner and To Do comes with the environment that you're working with, certainly in Teams, and you'll be able to see that, as well as be able to come in and track or progress it directly here, versus maybe necessarily jumping back out to a team or a channel or a group and progressing it directly in that environment. So again, I love the fact that they're driving visibility, one place to look, one location to find that information, and make sure your task and your work assignments are easy to manage and work with. So just important for us to see that and certainly see how that works directly there. So a couple of the things that are coming here. One, of course, we talked about advanced dependencies, and I just am so tickled about this. So being we'll call it a master scheduler, been doing scheduling for a long time. And remember, PMI back in 1968, 69, when it was forming, they were thinking about making it instead of the Project Management Institute, it was the Schedule Management Institute. And there was deep discussions around this, and they realized that, hey, delivering projects certainly is important with scheduling from an engineering perspective, but there's way more going on around projects than just scheduling. So from a scheduling perspective, the ability to have start to start, finish to finishes are going to be helpful. In fact, think about that for a moment. Right now, the current Project for the Web only has a finish to start relationship. So getting a start to start or a finish to finish, or as we talked about, a start to finish relationship where the start of a task will trigger the finish of another task. For those of you in the desktop or project desktop world, these exist. They've existed for almost 30 years, if not a little bit more in terms of back from the days in DOS, which, yes, as a dinosaur, I happen to use the DOS version of Project. But if we think about a start to finish or versus the, we call one of the most least used links, if you understand its purpose of doing reverse engineering, this becomes really helpful. So as we begin thinking about our project, saying, hey, look, I can actually reverse engineer a project using that start to finish milestone structure. I can actually begin working my way through that. And for those who've used that in the past, it'll be good to know that there's going to be more advanced dependencies rolling out here. Now, again, this is February of 2023, which is this month. So we should start seeing those dropping in, as well as our ability to dig deeper into in progress, more precision around doing task and work estimates. There's going to be some new interfaces in Project for the Web, meaning that people can tune their estimates, not just work on one particular field, but literally looking at the assignments. We'll also see a little bit more later when I do a video on what are called bookings and how these will work in terms of kind of managing the overall grid itself. So while these are some of the new features, I wanted to make sure people understand how to use this. And if we think back in terms of where Microsoft's going, the idea with that roadmap is that we really want to see that team information, that work information. And certainly as we do the crawl, walk, run, or the growth of Project for the Web, you're going to find more and more features, including that ability to get in and progress the assignments, progress the work without needing a license, and allowing your PMs who have a Plan 1 license to continue to work with that, including sharing that card information. So labels, templates, and certainly charts view, as I've kind of played around with some of these in the past, are very helpful. And as we work in project, it's nice to actually jump in here and say, hey, look, hey, there's some of the same experience that we've had, whether I'm in a board view, I want to group by progress or assignments, or if I want to just go back out to the main center, grab an existing file and look at my chart view. All of this information with Project for the Web is really helping to speed how people work, manage, and edit together. So again, as I drop my view here, you'll notice that I'll have some conditional coloring in here. So again, I've got that conditional coloring in the upper right here, where I can actually take fields, spot things. I can actually look and carry right into the board view. And while I'm maybe providing some of the graphical visualization that I might want to manage to, I also can group by sprint. And we're going to see this new field where we can actually define default sprints and add sprints themselves without having to force them to be in a bucket. So again, very helpful in terms of the continued growth from a spreadsheet view to a board view to a timeline view, and even the people view, getting into visualize work and assignments, and as well as making sure people aren't overloaded. All of this data, and certainly as we work in project, is one of the things in the Dataverse is that you can mine it and model this with Power BI. Maybe we'll do some how-to sessions for you guys a little bit later on, but very helpful to know that we've got an evolving tool that's really moving the team member experience of saying tasks might come from different places, but we can make sure that they're visible and you can see it in Teams if you want to turn that task by to-do. As I mentioned, and I've got a little screenshot here of the Viva goals, where we begin to start thinking about OKRs or objectives and key result statements that says, hey, I want to make sure my work is actually folding right into that and working together. Again, we're going to be able to tie that to more of a strategic plan, even if it's a departmental strategic plan, making sure that people always know what's the most in priority, what they should be doing on a week by week, month by month, or by quarter, or depending on how far you go out with that, and make sure that's available. And again, finally, as we get into, again, looking at that ability to share general information, we certainly can edit and modify these. Here's some great experience. In fact, if you look here, we can actually talk about, hey, what am I actually seeing in terms of historical snapshot data around my project? What was it before? How do I manage that directly? And again, sharing my information is going to be helpful. So from our perspective, we've done a little demo and kind of walk through some of these. I just want to make sure that people understand that as I wrap up today, I wanted to make sure you guys all had a chance to hear and see and think a little bit more about how Project for the Web is going to be able to help you. If you're looking for PDUs, we actually have plenty of those. In fact, all of our videos have PDUs. So if you want to go to our Learning Management channel and register, you can watch the same videos that we put out in the public. Again, it's all free for you guys to use. And again, we encourage you to reach out with questions, certainly thinking about how these new features may work or not work for you and finding the right tool set for the job. As people grow their productivity, we get excited to see that. And so again, thank you for your time. I appreciate that. I'm Tim Runcie. Take care now. Bye-bye.